In this video, we're going to look at measuring affordability. Affordability is a #1 priority for governments and elected officials. When prices are going up, people feel like they have less money, and that's going to translate into dissatisfaction with the current government. That's the question. How much do things cost? When we're talking about affordability, it's not an abstract thing, it's very specific. How much do things cost? And the metric we use for trying to get a picture of that is inflation. In this video, we're going to try to describe how inflation works and how to understand it. When we talk about inflation, there is a technical definition. It is an increase in the supply of money causing price levels to rise. Now, what does that mean? Well, think of an example. Let's say every week, a bunch of people take their paychecks and they go to the grocery store, they buy groceries. That's a given. They know how much money they make. It's pretty consistent each week. They go to the store, they buy roughly the same amount of goods and services. The store owner knows how much to charge. They know how reliable their suppliers will be and how much their supplies will cost at a certain price level. Sort of an equilibrium. Everything is consistent week to week, year to year. But what if there's a shock to that system? What if overnight everybody's incomes doubled? Perhaps the government gave a bonus payment to everybody. All of a sudden people have way more money than they used to. Is that good? Well, now they're going to be competing for a scarce supply of goods. The store owner doesn't have more inventory. He'll run out of inventory quicker. He'll have to buy new inventory, and those prices will rise as people are competing for goods and services. That'll translate throughout the economy. Price levels will begin to rise because more people have money and they're using their increased incomes to chase around scarce goods. Think of it conceptually. That increase in the money supply is decreasing the purchasing power of money. It's kind of technical, might be a little difficult to understand, so let's do it in plain language. In plain language, things cost more. That's really what people are concerned about. When they're talking about affordability and they think about inflation, do things cost more than they used to? And that is measured using the inflation rate. The inflation rate refers to changes in the overall price level. That's measured using a consumer price index. So we measure the inflation rate by an underlying basket of goods, a representative sample of things that people might tend to buy in a given week or in a given year, add those up and come up with an approximation of the overall price level in the economy. That consumer price index is compiled by using a basket of representative goods across different types of consumption. For example, food and shelter, household furnishings, transportation, health and personal care. All of those things go into this basket of goods, this consumer price index. Now, people that work for governments in Canada, at Statistics Canada, they do surveys, they go shopping to try and get a picture of how much things cost to the economy when they're compiling this index. Now, to understand this in the crudest of possible terms, you pick a year, you set that as your baseline. So let's say 2024 is our baseline. Our basket of goods and services that we've sampled, our consumer price index is 100. 2025, that same basket of goods and services is now $102. So we've seen some inflation. The price of that has risen. 2026 goes up again. So if we want to measure the inflation rate, what we're measuring is the difference between 2 years. So when we look at how much prices have gone up between 2026 and 2025, we're looking at around 1%. $1 out of 100 is really what we're looking at. So that's what the inflation rate is referring to. How much has the average price level increased based on the previous year according to a baseline? So to understand inflation rates, it can sometimes be confusing. You hear a lot of them in the news, and sometimes they make headlines, and sometimes they seem really large. You might hear January, 6% inflation, February, 5% inflation, 4% in March. And how do you interpret that? Like, does that mean inflation is 15%? Do we just keep adding them month to month? No, we don't do that. Inflation is measured year over year. So when we see that inflation is 6% in January, it means prices have gone up 6% since the previous year in January. February, 5% doesn't mean they've gone up 5% since last month in January. It means they've gone up 5% since last February. These are measured year over year. So it's not the month-to-month number that we're concerned about, although if that month-to-month number is going up, that means a general increase in the inflation rate. In this example, since it's decreasing each month, we would see that inflation is generally coming down based on those year-over-year numbers. Just to recap, inflation can be tough to understand, but it's easy to think about as a rise in the overall price levels. That's what we're talking about. It's not a rise in the price of some things, not a change in relative price levels. If one thing gets more expensive, that's just one thing getting more expensive. Inflation is everything getting more expensive. And we know that by looking at a consumer price index, a CPI. We want to know what the changes are in a representative basket of goods and services. That's what we're talking about when we talk about inflation.